Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on the FareCompare Weekly Podcast. My name is Rick Zini. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FareCompare.com, and we are now on video podcast episode number 40. That's 3 dozen plus 4 for you math majors out there, and we're going to chat a little bit about a few news topics that have come up lately. We did a little quick study on some July 4th holiday weekend stuff, noticing the prices had dropped a bit. Still not too late. I just did a bunch of radio shows this morning, and clearly there was still a few last minute deals, especially for traveling Saturday to Tuesday around July 4th. So we'll chat a bit about that. Also, we have we've seen some people on the no-fly list. Well, we actually have a no-pack list as well. So we're going to chat a bit about what you shouldn't pack, which is very relevant for me because in my house we're going to be doing some packing in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and for a lengthy trip, and we're going to probably hopefully eat some of our own medicine there. We'll also talk about our event of the week, and it's related to camels, so we'll get into that, and then we'll also take a question from somebody that sent us a note on customer.service@FareCompare.com. And joining me today is our website editor and producer of all content on a variety of channels, Ann McDermott. Hey Ann, how are you doing?
I am looking forward to the camel fair. That's how I'm doing.
I am too. I've heard that they can spit pretty far. We'll have to have a little more discussion about that soon. So, outside of camel spitting, we should probably talk a little bit about some of this last-minute July 4th stuff.
Right. Can you still buy decent tickets for 4th of July weekend?
Yeah, I did a bunch of radio shows on this topic this morning across the nation, and you can always find a deal. The problem is you have to relax some of the things that you're looking for. The top destinations, many times there's not deals, so there's other destinations that have deals. You have to be willing, for example, to travel, around July 4th, Saturday to Tuesday. That might require you to take one of your vacation days to get Tuesday as one of your, so extending the holiday out an extra day. So, but in general, you could still find some. The window is closing very sharply, so you want to get out there, buy that ticket for July 4th weekend as quick as you can. Shop for Saturday to Tuesday, and you'll see some of the deals out there. I was looking at a variety of places. It looks like Seattle is one of the cheaper places, especially if you're in the Northeast and you want to head out to the Northwest. Also, for July 4th weekend, I noticed Puerto Rico and Cancun had some cheaper prices in the high 300 ranges for many of the cities in the northern part of the country, Chicago, Minneapolis, some in the Northeast as well, a little bit cheaper out of some of the southern states. So check those out as potential destinations. And look, tons of deals out there for certain days of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday being your cheapest days to fly for the rest of the summer. August 23rd is that magic date we've been talking about for departures on or after the 23rd. We see prices dropping. So, and that's some fairly good news. I noticed that United Airlines announced today that they think next year to investors that some of their prices will be down anywhere from 5 to 8%. I think that's a reflection of fuel prices finally catching up, demand probably slowing a little bit in some of the projections, and maybe a little bit more capacity. Cuba opening up, for example. We'll have to see how that all pans out, but in general, we saw prices drop year over year. That's the good news. Bad news was last year was terribly expensive, and I think that trend is going to continue at least for the next probably 14 or 15 months.
Another reason to jump on 4th of July fairs, if you're interested in going anywhere, is if you're not staying with friends, you want to get a hotel wrapped up, and it's they'd be packed. So
they are, yeah. I know a lot of people drive on the July 4th weekend. In fact, I've seen any numbers that range from anywhere from 55 to 75% of people are doing those driving options. So people getting away. I think this is good news. That means a little extra money in people's pockets. They've been saving at the pump, filling up their car, and hopefully, as we see the months sort of tick off here, the next 4 or 5 months, we'll see the airlines continue to keep prices down. I think again, it's a reflection of demand. Certain cities are winners and losers, and if you happen to be in one of those metro cities that has some great deals, get out there and start shopping for travel. It's a perfect time to shop right now.
And if you are going to travel, we have a list of 10 things that you should not have.
Yeah, it's the no-fly list and the no-pack list. You do not want to be on the no-fly list, and you certainly don't want to pack these items. In fact, the airlines, if you do pack them many times and they do lose your bag for whatever reason, by the way, they've done a better job of actually not mishandling bags lately, but anything that's irreplaceable, typically they will not refund you. So that's a variety of things, jewelry, cameras, electronics, a variety of things. So just got to be really careful about irreplaceable items.
I always say, unless you're going to meet the Queen in England and you need to wear a tiara to do so, what are you going to wear this stuff for?
You should see it's so funny, Ann. I mean, my wife's already negotiating with my daughter about this trip we're going to be taking later in the summer, and she's like, well, here's what you're going to do. You know those shoes that are really terrible that we want to throw away? Let's go ahead and wear those and then throw them away. That'll save some bag space. The negotiation's already started because we won't be checking any bags so every square inch is being negotiated right now.
Well, most of these tips are perfect for people that want to use a carry-on, because we are trying to get rid of the space eaters and the things that will weigh you down and cause bags to be more expensive. And you can get dinged for overweight fees and oversized fees for carry-ons as well as checked bags. So, all these things are good. And you mentioned shoes. We have said for forever, wear one pair, pack a pair, and even ladies that want to dress up a little bit in the evening can have some sandals that, as long as they're comfortable, get some with sequins on.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, the negotiation goes something like this. Okay, well, I'm going to take a couple, 2 or 3 pair. The heaviest pair I'm going to wear on the plane because I can take them off on the long flight. I mean, it's, again, it's, if you have an old pair that need to be tossed, take those and use those. It's pretty funny how, when you really are trying to make it easy. And then the nice thing about it, Ann, is that you're not lugging around those big, huge, ridiculous bags, around, especially if you're trying to be semi-mobile and taking trains, planes, and automobiles to different places, which is fun to do when you're in Europe, for example. So, the other thing too that's been negotiated is travel curlers, right? So if you're going to Europe, they have to be in the what I would call 220, what they call 240 mode. So in fact, I just saw my Amazon ding in and say that my wife bought the travel set of 4 or 5 curlers that are in the correct, so you can switch it between U.S. mode and European mode, because we've had last time curlers explode because we didn't plug them in correctly.
That adds an extra touch of excitement to trip. But
yeah, it's always good when you hear explosions coming from your bathroom, so it's probably not a good idea. So you can as well check your electronics. Almost all electronics will do both, but just be careful on certain things, especially things. And really, packing a blow dryer is probably not needed because almost every hotel has those nowadays.
Well, you mentioned electronics, and one thing you should do is somehow or other get your contact information on them. Now, this is no guarantee you'll get it back, but the TSA and airport lost and founds both tell us that they have storerooms piled high with electronics that they simply cannot reunite with their owners. Most of them are locked, so they can't get in, and they have no way, I guess 500 iPhones pretty much look the same, and if you've got to have something on it, some way of identifying it, because people lose them all the time and they never get them back, even though they're there.
It's interesting. Yeah, so it's one of these interesting things about packing that it's actually a bit of a science, and I think people will have fun with it. Just take a look at the top 10 list of things not to take. These actually were sort of a group effort, and I know many of the things that I've changed over time. And one thing, Ann, too, is I've made every mistake you can possibly make. So just use my mistakes as background for many of these things. So we fly a lot, millions of miles in the last 30 to 35 years, and I've probably made almost every mistake you could possibly make. I've been pickpocketed. I've had curlers explode. So you name it, I've had issues with it. So hopefully. Well, I've lost my passport once in that time, so all these things that we're talking about come from background and experience, so hopefully you won't make the same mistakes I do.
And thank goodness now that makes you a total expert, which is why you're about to help Alana from Denver. She's got a question, and
sure.
I know you like these, and this is a good one. She says, I got a great deal for me and my husband to go to England in just a couple of weeks. The problem is we have a very long layover coming back.
Yes.
We arrived in Minneapolis at about 5, and I guess that's 5 p.m. Yep, 5 p.m. and our flight doesn't, the connecting flight home to Denver doesn't leave until the next day at 1, and I'm guessing this is 1 p.m. So we're talking a long stretch from 5 p.m. one day to 1 p.m. the next. And she asks, is it possible to fly on standby for an earlier flight on the day we arrive in Minneapolis? Surely there are other flights back to Denver, and it used to be, as she points out, that we could fly standby on an earlier flight. Not sure if this is the case anymore, and I know things have changed.
Sure.
So
that's a good question, actually. I haven't seen a question like that before. Did she say which airline she's flying on?
Does not know.
Okay, well, we'll talk about all of them. So it is not unusual to find a super cheap ticket to Europe with some crazy layovers, like overnight layovers, for example, where you arrive in the afternoon and then have to wait till the next morning to take a flight. It's just the way inventory works. An international stopover is up to 24 hours, so that connection can be up to 24 hours. It sounds like hers is in that 20-hour range, 19-hour range. So as far as standby is concerned, every airline's slightly different, but if we take sort of the top, let's assume it's one of the top 3 airlines that fly to Europe, United, Delta, and American. In the case in the case of all 3 of them, you can go get on the standby list. There's actually two ways to do things. I know American, which I fly a lot on because I'm in Dallas, they have confirmed standby versus just standby. So there's a fee related to that. In the case I have status on there, so I think the fee is around $75 to get on the list on both of these airlines. I think it's maybe $50 on Delta. The last time I checked on Delta, it was $50. But essentially, you're going to pay a fee to get on the standby list. If you don't end up getting on your standby, it ends up being refunded to you. So if there are some empty seats on those flights, and depending on what day she's coming back, I didn't say what day she was coming back, I don't think. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Saturdays are a little bit slower, so you're more likely to be able to catch that standby. But it's in her particular case, that saves a hotel room for the night in Minneapolis. So definitely get on the standby list. I'm not positive they have confirmed standbys on United and Delta. I don't fly them as often, but in essence, all of them have a standby list, and there is a fee associated with that.
And it does change. Airlines are always changing their fees and their policies without notice, particularly their fees. So whatever your airline is, look it up. I guess it's
essentially what happens is they're going to take your ticket and essentially turn it into a standby ticket, and then sort of let you know which gate to go to when the first flight possibly. If you ask nicely of the person, typically they'll tell you how many seats are actually taken. You can kind of get a feel for whether or not that you're going to be able to make that particular flight or not. So so if you catch somebody in a short line, you might be able to coax some more information out of them. But essentially, if you miss that first standby, it gets completely full, then you need to find the second one, and so on until out of Minneapolis. I'm sure, depending on what airline it is, there's going to be several flights nonstop into Denver after 5 p.m. At least 1 or 2.
I've never had to do this, but presumably, if they were, really wanted to, they could just stay in the airport, couldn't they?
You could, I guess that. Well, literally you could sleep on the benches. I guess some airports. I'm not sure if Minneapolis has one. Has some of those micro hotels where you're basically have a bed in a pod. You can actually do that as well. So it depends on the particular location, but I think I think you pretty much you can tuck yourself in on one of the chairs that are there. I don't think I've ever done that before. I'd rather find a hotel in these particular cases. But in some cases, if you get there, go have a nice dinner in the Minneapolis area and hang out and find a hotel. It just depends. So if you're really interested in getting home very quickly, then try that standby list.
Yeah, I hope it works out for them. That's a long layover, and
it is. Yeah, I'm sure they got a great deal, and that probably saves several $100s per person on that kind of itinerary.
If anybody else has got a question for Rick, please send it to us at customer.service@faircompare.com, and he will give you the straight story.
And I think we're off. The event this week is to India to and I want to say that this is a camel fair, FAIR, as opposed to FARE, which I'm very familiar with. The Pushkar Camel Fair in early November, in I guess just outside of Delhi. It looks like.
It does. It's a 100-year-old festival. I'm laughing because camel fairs are new to me, but I gotta say, it sounds like a lot of fun. It's considered the world's largest camel fair. Now, who knew that camel fairs were a regular thing so that people could make comparisons? But in case you're wondering or want to make a count, there's going to be over 50,000 camels here. 50,000. As well as musicians.
I bet you can find a camel ride, Ann.
Good. Dance performers, acrobats, musicians, carnival rides, camel rides, presumably. And it also says something like, could this be possible, 8 million tourists, or would that be 800,000? Well, there's going to be a lot of people there because apparently everyone wants to go to a camel fair. I would like to go to a camel fair.
I was just looking at it. I was just looking at some of the photos on the Adventurous app this morning when I saw this morning, and it reminded me of a scene out of Game of Thrones in one of the Outback scenes where they have a bunch of camels and horseback. So it's pretty interesting. This is one of those things where I'm not positive my wife or daughter are really huge camel fans. But I'd love to do it. It's sort of I have no problem. We went to the horse races the other night. I was petting one of the horses out there, and my daughter had nothing to do with it. So I got a feeling camels are off of the verboten list. But
she doesn't like horses. I don't think camels are going to do it.
Yeah, but the festival part, I see a huge, circular wheel. It looks like a sort of a mini Eye of London out there. So it looks like it's got all sorts of interesting tidbits. So we'll have to get one of our folks to check that out and send us a note about how the camel fair was this year.
One last thing, they say it's good for glamping, which, as you know, is a glamorous form of camping. Now, let me ask you.
Is that when you have a butane curling iron or something like that? Is that the glamorous form of camping?
And there's 50,000 camels nearby, and it's probably pretty hot. I don't know that I'd see the glamour in that, but I could be wrong. I would like to go to this thing.
No, actually, I'd go in a heartbeat. I'd love to check that out. So, I don't know. I have fun. Sort of the funnest thing about traveling for me is mixing in with the locals and hanging out and doing stuff. I've already seen many of the other sites, so it's sort of fun to do that. So, again, check out the Adventurous app. We are adding several new events every week, and so check that out. And you can then favorite them. We can show you the airfare, how to get there. So. We're updating them every year over year, especially certain events that are out there. So, check that out. And you can do that at Google Play or the iOS App Store. Also, if you want to catch our video podcast, you can catch it on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. So please do that. And hopefully you'll catch episode 41 next week. So thanks for joining us on the video podcast. Be sure to send me some more questions. Love to do some of these airfare hacking things. Got a good question to Rio this morning for the Olympics. We talked about hacking that, a variety of other things, including how to do standby today. So send us a note, and we'll see what we can do to help.
Thanks, Rick.